My only son convinced me to take out loans to fund his dream business. I trusted him. I believed every promise he made. Then when he became successful, he told everyone I was reckless with money. He thought I would stay quiet. He was wrong. Chapter 1. The Weight of Sacrifice. Hello, my name is Laura. The kitchen light flickered like it was tired too. A single yellow bulb hummed above the table, throwing long, crooked shadows over the stack of bills in front of me. They looked taller tonight. Heavier. Like they were multiplying when I wasn't looking. I spread them out with shaking hands. Electricity. Credit card. Second loan. Third loan. Each envelope felt like a stone being stacked on my chest. Upstairs, Ryan laughed into his phone. Bright, confident, alive. We're scaling fast. Yeah, 6 figures by Q3. Investors are circling. His voice carried through the vents like music from another life. I closed my eyes and smiled despite the ache. That's my boy, I thought. Dreaming bigger than this house ever could. Listening to him now, it was hard to reconcile this sharp, fast-talking man with the little boy he used to be. There was a time when our house was loud with laughter. Before the bills. Before the silence. Before his father left. Back then, Ryan used to follow me everywhere. Tiny sneakers squeaking on the kitchen tile. Sticky fingers tugging at my sleeve. Watch me, Mom. Watch this. Every moment was something he wanted to share. He used to line up his toy cars on the coffee table and assign them jobs. This one's the boss, he'd say proudly. And this one makes the money. His father would laugh and ruffle his hair. Kid's gonna run the world someday. And for a while, we were happy. We weren't rich. We weren't anything special. But we were whole. Then one morning his father packed a single suitcase. No shouting. No explanation. Just the quiet click of the front door closing. Ryan stood at the window the entire afternoon, waiting for headlights that never came back. He didn't cry. That was what scared me most. He just went quiet. Too quiet for a 7-year-old. After that, something shifted. He stopped asking for toys. Started asking how much things cost. How much is the house worth? How much do you make it work? Why don't we have what other kids have? Questions no child should care about. I told myself he was just growing up fast. But sometimes I'd catch him watching me the way adults watch each other. Calculating. Measuring. Once when he was 10, the school called. Said he'd convinced another boy to trade lunches every day for a week. Told the kid his sandwiches were premium and worth more. When I asked him why, he just shrugged. He believed me, he said. No guilt. No shame. Just logic. That was the first time a chill ran through me. He was my son. I told myself ambition wasn't a flaw. I told myself he was just trying to protect us. After his father left, Ryan started saying it all the time. Don't worry, Mom. One day I'll make so much money we'll never need anyone. I held on to that promise like a life raft. I didn't realize, somewhere along the way, taking care of me, slowly turned into leaving me behind. The first time Ryan asked me for money, he was 16. Old enough to drive. Old enough to work. Old enough, I thought, to understand what things cost. I was folding laundry on the couch when he came home from school, backpack slung low, jaw tight the way it got when something was bothering him. He didn't say hello. Just paced. Back and forth. Like he was rehearsing something. Mom, he finally said, casual, too casual. Can we talk? I muted the television. Of course, honey. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. There's this program. For entrepreneurs. They teach you how to start businesses early. Real-world stuff. Networking. Investors. It's legit. He said the word investors like it glittered. That sounds wonderful, I smiled. Is it through the school? He hesitated. Not exactly. My stomach tightened. How much is it? 500. I actually laughed, not because it was funny but because it had to be a joke. $500 might as well have been 5,000 back then. Ryan, that's grocery money. That's the electric bill. His face changed. Not anger. Not sadness. Something sharper. Calculation. Everyone else's parents are paying, he said quietly. There was. Not I need this. Not this matters to me. But comparison. Shame. Like I was the one failing him. If I don't go, he continued softer now, I'll fall behind. These kids already have advantages. Dads with connections. Money. I'm starting with nothing. The word dad hung in the air between us like smoke. He knew exactly what he was doing. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe it had just become instinct. Either way, it worked. I just thought, he added, eyes glossy now, you believed in me. That did it. Not yelling. Not begging. Just disappointment. Quiet and surgical. Like a knife. An hour later, I was at the bank, pulling money from the small emergency fund I'd promised myself I'd never touch. When I handed him the envelope, his entire face lit up. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. You won't regret this, Mom. I swear. One day I'll pay you back 100 times over. I believed him. God help me. I believed him. That was the first time. The first temporary sacrifice. The first promise of repayment. The first lie I told myself. It's just this once. I didn't know then that every debt has a beginning. And sometimes, it isn't the bank that collects. It's your own child. Looking back now, there's something else I didn't notice at the time. Or maybe I noticed, and chose not to see it. Ryan never said thank you. Not once. Not for the big things. Not for the small ones. Not for the late nights I stayed up sewing patches onto his only winter coat. Not for the extra shifts. Not for the envelopes of cash slipped quietly onto his desk before school trips or competitions. It wasn't that he was rude. He wasn't cruel. He just skipped that part. Like gratitude was unnecessary. Like what I did for him was expected. Automatic. The first time I really registered it, he was 17. I had just paid for a set of marketing textbooks he insisted he needed for a summer course. They cost more than our monthly water bill. I remember standing at the checkout counter, pretending not to notice how the cashier looked at me when my card declined the first time. I tried again. Proved. Barely. Outside the store, I handed Ryan the heavy bag. I waited. For a smile. For a hug. For a simple thanks, Mom. Instead, he flipped through the receipt, already calculating. This is good, he said. This will pay off. Trust me. That was it. Not gratitude. Return on investment. Like he was pitching me. Like I was a shareholder instead of his mother. I told myself that was just how ambitious kids talked. That he was focused. Driven. Different from other boys. I even felt proud. But standing there in that parking lot, watching him walk ahead of me, already texting someone about future profits, I remember feeling something small and sharp in my chest. A splinter of a thought I pushed down for years. He didn't see what I gave him as love. He saw it as capital. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being Mom. I became funding. My hand trembled as I picked up another bill. Another loan payment. My bank account was almost empty. He never asked for help outright, of course. Instead, he would spend hours lamenting about his grand ambitions and lofty goals, insisting that just a little support would set us on the path to greatness. He talked about how hard he worked and how he lacked the backing that others took for granted. Every time he'd pull me into a hug and promise that one day he'd be a success and we'd have everything we dreamed of. But I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that he knew exactly what he was doing. Deep down, I suspected that the money he spoke of was nothing more than an illusion. Money conjured from thin air. He never held a real job. He claimed he had to dedicate himself fully to building his brand. Meanwhile, I worked tirelessly to keep us afloat, and there was nothing left over to invest in the very venture he was so desperate to launch. I had taken on debt after debt, determined to provide Ryan with the funds he needed to launch his startup. Ryan was full of ambition and dreams. I didn't want him burdened by the reality of what it had cost me, and he didn't want to see. I picked up my checkbook and scribbled down yet another minimum payment, just to keep the creditors at bay for a little longer, knowing deep down that every sacrifice I made was for his future. My heart swelled with pride for his ambition, even as a gnawing worry tightened in my chest. Just then, the door to Ryan's room creaked open. He burst into the kitchen, his eyes alight with triumph. "Mom, you won't believe it. The investor wants to put in a huge amount of capital. This is it. This is the breakthrough I've been waiting for." I forced a smile, pushing my worry deep down inside though my hands still shook. That's wonderful, Ryan. I'm so proud of you, I replied, swallowing my fear. Ryan barely noticed my expression, too caught up in his own triumph. I'll finally get things really rolling, Mom. No more scrimping or struggling. We're going to be on top, Mom, I promise. I nodded, but my heart ached. I wanted to tell him everything, the sacrifices I had made, the debts I had taken on, but I knew I couldn't. Ryan's confidence was soaring, and the last thing I wanted was to drag him down with my financial troubles. I asked softly, have you thought about what you'll do once the business takes off? His eyes sparkled. I've got big plans, expanding the brand, maybe even opening offices in other cities. This is going to change everything. I couldn't help but add, and what about us, Ryan? You'll still need your family, won't you? The question seemed to catch Ryan off guard. He hesitated as if for the first time seeing me clearly, then shrugged it off with a hasty, of course, Mom. But, I'll be busy traveling, meeting new people. I'll still visit, though, he added quickly. I smiled, though my chest tightened. Just don't forget where you came from, Ryan. Never, he replied, but his gaze was already drifting away, lost in the visions of his future success. I'll always be around. But I knew, even as he spoke, that something was changing. I had given him everything, my savings, my security, my peace of mind, and now he was stepping away, leaving me behind like a forgotten sacrifice. Later that night I passed his door. It was half open. He didn't know I was there. Yeah, he muttered into his phone, voice lower now. She'll figure something out. She always does. Pause. Then a soft laugh. Moms are like that. Something inside me tightened. I told myself I must have misunderstood. I always did. Weeks passed, and as Ryan's business continued to grow, so did the distance between us. He began spending more time away from home, meeting with investors, networking with influential people. I watched as my son transformed. His modest wardrobe replaced with designer suits, his conversations filled with talk of wealth and status. One evening, after yet another business trip, Ryan returned home and dropped a bombshell. Mom, I've been thinking. His tone almost rehearsed. I'm going to move out. The business is really taking off, and I think it's time I got my own place closer to the city. My heart sank. But Ryan, you don't need to go yet. We've been doing fine here. You're just getting started. Why rush into such a big change? Ryan looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. It's not just that, Mom. Well, I'm planning on moving in with some colleagues. It's closer to the investors, the market, and to be honest, it's better for my image. Your image. Confusion and hurt flashing across my face. Ryan sighed, avoiding my gaze. Mom, look, I'm really grateful for everything you've done, but people don't understand why I still live here. They judge, I need to be around people who are on the same level, who get it. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. So you're embarrassed by me, I said quietly. It's not like that, Ryan insisted, but the look in his eyes betrayed him. I can't have my past holding me back. You understand, right? My hand gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white. I don't know, Ryan. I don't know if I do. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. This is a good thing, Mom. For both of us. You'll see. Chapter 2. Shadows of Betrayal. The next morning, I woke up to find Ryan's room empty. The closet was bare, his belongings packed and gone. He had left a note on the kitchen table, promising to visit soon. I stared at the note, my vision blurring with tears I couldn't stop. The days after Ryan left were eerily silent. I wandered our empty house like a ghost, haunted by the echoes of his laughter and the remnants of our once shared life. I couldn't shake the bitter taste of betrayal, not just by the business that promised so much, but by the son I had nurtured with every sacrifice. Not once had he purchased groceries or paid a bill. He had lived here seeing me work multiple jobs, struggling, and he was focused on his business, not seeing the need. The knock wasn't polite. It was the kind that expected bad news. 3 sharp raps. Final. Visual. I opened the door to a man who didn't smile. Gray suit. Clipboard. No warmth in his eyes. Miss Harper. My throat dried. Yes. Final notice. He handed me the envelope like he was handing me a diagnosis. 2 weeks. 2 weeks for what? Before proceedings begin. Proceedings. Such a clean word for something that would erase my home. His words hit me like a tidal wave. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to salvage the life I'd built for myself, even as everything crumbled around me. The next day, I mustered every ounce of courage and drove to Ryan's new office. A sleek, modern building that seemed to mock my worn-out existence. I approached the receptionist, voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Hi, I'm here to see Ryan Harper. I'm his mother." The receptionist hesitated, then said, "Mr. Harper is in a meeting. You'll need an appointment." "An appointment?" "I'm his mother," I repeated, voice cracking with disbelief. Her polite smile faded and I turned away, hurt and rejected. As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, hoping it was Ryan calling to apologize or explain. Instead, it was a text from my creditors reminded me of the looming deadline. With tears threatening to spill, I realized I had no choice but to face this head-on. I felt a mixture of fear and resolve. I had tried to shield Ryan from the truth, but now it was time for him to face it. I wouldn't let the sacrifices I had made be in vain. And if Ryan thought he could simply walk away, he was sorely mistaken. In the quiet of my kitchen, I began to plan my next move. I might have been just a mother to Ryan, but I had her own strength, my own determination. And I wasn't about to let my son forget that. I had never imagined that success would drive such a wedge between us, turning my son into a stranger who saw me as a burden rather than the bedrock of his achievements. But as much as it hurt, I knew I couldn't afford to dwell on my grief. I was running out of time. That evening, as I sat alone in the dim glow of my living room, the sense of isolation weighed heavily on me. My thoughts churned with betrayal and despair. I felt abandoned, not just by Ryan but by the very world I had sacrificed so much for. I had never felt so alone. My son, the one I had sacrificed so much for, was slipping away from me. And now, the financial burden I had taken on to support him was threatening to destroy everything I had left. As I stared blankly at the television, a thought began to form in my mind, one that made me feel sick to the core. What if Ryan didn't want to help me? What if he saw my debts as a liability, something that could ruin his carefully crafted image? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how easily Ryan had distanced himself from my modest lifestyle. It was as if he was ashamed of where he came from, ashamed of me. I stared at the stack of bills again. 2 weeks. That was all the bank had given me. 2 weeks before I lost the house I raised my son in. I wondered if Ryan would even care. Then the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Catherine, a long-lost friend from my past. We had been close friends during younger years, but had lost touch over time. "What are you doing here?" Her eyes filled with concern and resolve. "Laura, it's been too long. I heard about your situation and I'm here to help." Catherine's presence was a lifeline in the darkness. "I'm sorry to show up like this, but I'm worried about you," her eyes full of sympathy. "I heard about the loans, the debts, and Ryan." I sighed, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "It's a mess, Catherine. I don't know what to do." We sat at my kitchen table and I poured out the pain of being abandoned, of being used as a stepping stone for someone else's success. The years had changed both of us, but there was still a bond between us that time hadn't erased. Catherine leaned in, lowering her voice. "There's something you need to know about Ryan. He's not just distancing himself from you, Laura. He's been telling people that you're the one who mismanaged your finances. He's making it sound like you're the one who's been irresponsible, not him." Laura's heart sank. "What? Why would he do that?" "To protect himself, I imagine. He's trying to create a narrative where he's the successful son who had to break away from his mother's poor decisions. He's using your debts to justify cutting ties with you." I felt tears welling up. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had imagined. "I sacrificed everything for him, Catherine. Everything." "I know," Catherine said, reaching out to hold my hand. "But you can't let him ruin your life because of his ambition. You need to protect yourself." The words echoed in my mind, igniting a spark of determination I hadn't felt in a long time. I had spent years putting Ryan's needs before my own, but now it was time to take control. What do I do? Catherine squeezed my hand. You fight back. Don't let him take everything from you. There are ways to get out of this, but you need to be smart. And most importantly, you need to stop protecting Ryan. I nodded, the fire in my chest growing stronger. I wasn't going to let Ryan destroy my life, not after everything I had done for him. As Catherine outlined a plan, I listened carefully, absorbing every word. It was time to stop being the sacrificial lamb and start taking back what was mine. I had 2 weeks to turn things around, and I wasn't going to waste a single day. I spent the next 2 weeks renegotiating with creditors, consolidating my debts and selling off what little valuables I had, determined to raise enough money to buy myself more time. It wasn't easy, but I could feel the tide slowly turning. Catherine didn't rescue me. He handed me a folder. You kept every receipt, didn't you? I nodded. Good, she said. Then we don't beg. We prove. For the first time in years, I wasn't crying. I was organizing, printing, highlighting. Every transfer, every check, every withdrawal made for Ryan. Not sacrifices anymore. Evidence. The real challenge lay ahead, confronting Ryan. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. Finally, the day came when I couldn't put it off any longer. I called Ryan, who answered with a tone that was polite but distant. Mom, what's up? He asked, as if I were just another person on his to-do list. Ryan, we need to talk, my voice firm. I'm coming to your office. There was a pause on the other end, then Ryan sighed. Fine. But I don't have much time. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. When I arrived at the office, I walked in with my head held high, determined not to let Ryan intimidate me. I was met with the same receptionist, who didn't seem surprised to see me again. Mr. Harper is expecting you, the receptionist said, gesturing towards the elevator. I arrived at Ryan's office with my heart pounding. When I stepped into his expansive office, I saw him behind a large, modern desk, confident, successful, and distant. Mom, what's going on? His tone impatient. I closed the door behind me and sat down, meeting his eyes with a steadiness I hadn't felt in years. Ryan, we need to talk. About the debts I took on to fund your business. The sacrifices I made for you. He frowned. Mom, I told you I'm doing everything I can. I couldn't hold back the pain. No, Ryan, you're not listening. I'm drowning in debt because I wanted you to succeed. I kept the truth from you to protect you, but now I'm at risk of losing everything. His face hardened, shifting in his seat. I didn't ask you to do that, Mom. I've worked hard to get where I am. I built this on my own. And I've worked hard too, I shot back. I was always there, behind the scenes, giving everything I had so you could reach the top. My voice started shaking, but I didn't stop. Do you know what hurts the most? Ryan sighed, already impatient. Mom, you never even said thank you. The words surprised even me. Small, simple. But they landed heavier than anything else. He blinked. What? All those years. The loans, the programs, the books, the money for your opportunities. My throat tightened. Every time I handed you something, you didn't say, thank you. I laughed softly, bitterly. You'd say, this will pay off. Ryan's jaw flexed. Because it did pay off, he said. Look around, Mom. It worked. That's the point, I whispered. Silence filled the office. It wasn't supposed to be an investment, Ryan. I pressed my hand to my chest. It was love. He looked away first. Not angry. Not defensive. Just uncomfortable. Like I'd spoken a language he didn't recognize anymore. And in that moment I understood something that hurt worse than all the debt. My son hadn't betrayed me. He simply stopped seeing me. You're using my sacrifices to distance yourself, to erase the past. You're ashamed of where you came from, and you're trying to rewrite the story to make yourself look better. Ryan's jaw clenched. I'm not ashamed, I'm trying to move forward, Mom. I need to be around people who understand the business world, who won't remind you of the cost, I finished for him. But you can't erase the past, Ryan. And you can't erase me. The tension in the room was thick, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Ryan's eyes flashed with anger and regret. What do you want from me, Mom? Money. To pay off your debts. I shook my head. I want you to acknowledge what I've done for you. I want you to stop pretending that you built this all on your own. And most of all, I want you to be the son I raised. The one who knows that life isn't just about success. It's about love, sacrifice, and loyalty. I raised you giving everything I had, and I deserve that respect. For a long moment, silence hung between us. Then Ryan's expression softened ever so slightly before hardening again. I appreciate what you did, Mom, but I can't let it hold me back. I'm building something big here, something that could change our lives. I'm sorry if you feel betrayed, but I need to move forward. My way. I felt a pang of sadness, but I had to accept the truth. Ryan had made his choice, and now I had to make mine. I stood, my resolve crystallizing. Then I'll do what I must to protect myself. I will reclaim my life. Success built on lies and betrayal will never last. One day you'll understand the cost of your ambition. Without another word, I turned and left his office, leaving Ryan to sit alone with his thoughts. As I stepped back into the city's bustle, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had faced my fears, confronted the truth, and now was ready to move forward, the author of my own destiny. Catherine felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she helped me fight back. She couldn't stand the thought of me losing everything after all the sacrifices I'd made, taking on loans and debts to finance Ryan's business, risking so much for a son who repaid me by spreading lies about financial irresponsibility. It infuriated Catherine, and she was determined to help me overcome this betrayal. As I implemented the plan Catherine had devised, I slowly began to turn things around. Catherine, ever resourceful, also had ideas to generate much-needed additional income. Our rekindled friendship, once one of the strongest bonds in my life, felt as if it had never faltered even after years apart. But it gnawed at Catherine how Ryan had treated me, going so far as to tarnish my reputation to protect his own. Catherine knew that Ryan had pressured me for financial support, never intending to repay, and it was time he faced consequences for his actions. Catherine wasn't content to simply watch from the sidelines. She devised a plan to give Ryan a taste of his own medicine. It wasn't difficult to find allies. Ryan's aggressive and arrogant business style had already earned him plenty of enemies. It didn't happen overnight. Success rarely collapses in one loud crash. It rots quietly. Then the article appeared. A small business blog at first. Then a larger outlet picked it up. Entrepreneur accused of exploiting his own mother. Ryan's investors started asking questions. First, one investor backed out. Then a second. Then emails went unanswered. Rumors started spreading. Screenshots, messages, stories from former partners. Ryan called me once at midnight. His voice sounded small. "Mom, did you talk to anyone?" I looked at the folder of receipts on my table. "I told the truth," I said. Silence. For the first time in his life. He didn't know what to say. As the truth of how Ryan had used me and then maligned me to justify cutting ties became public, opinions swiftly turned against him. Investors pulled back and his reputation began to crumble. In a desperate bid to salvage his image, Ryan proposed a grand gesture. He would publicly take on my debts, trying to spin the narrative in his favor. But I refused to let him make me part of a spectacle. I rejected his attempt to use me for a public show. Catherine and her allies made sure Ryan was held accountable. They insisted that he pay off every last bit of the remaining debt and even forced him to reimburse me for all the money I'd paid over the years. In exchange for their promise to end their relentless series of revelations, Ryan reluctantly agreed to purchase a condo in a reputable building for me, along with a generous monthly stipend. The rent from the house I raised him in further eased my financial situation. The old house was quiet the day I left it. Sunlight moved through the empty rooms like memories packing themselves away. I stood in Ryan's old doorway one last time. The walls still held faint marks where his posters used to hang. I traced one with my finger. I used to think love meant giving everything. Now I know better. Love shouldn't cost your life. I locked the door behind me and didn't look back. For the first time in years, the weight was gone. Not the debt. The guilt. Without the weight of loans and debts crushing me, I felt a lightness I had forgotten was possible. Though I had lost my son, I gained something far more valuable. A future filled with comfort, companionship, and the promise of happiness, thanks to Catherine and the others in my community who had come to my aid. The condo was quiet the first night. Too quiet. No creaky stairs. No humming fridge. No echoes of footsteps overhead. Just stillness. Peaceful, but unfamiliar. I stood by the window, city lights blinking in the distance, and for a moment I didn't know what to do with myself. For years, every thought had been about surviving. Paying. Fixing. Sacrificing. Now there was nothing chasing me. No collectors. No fear. Just space. It felt lighter. But loneliness has a lightness too. Like floating. Like drifting untethered. I opened the small box I'd brought from the house. The only keepsakes I couldn't part with. Old photos. Report cards. A crooked macaroni picture frame from first grade. And then I found it. A crayon drawing on wrinkled construction paper. Faded blue sky. Stick figures. Our little house. Me. His father. Ryan between us holding both our hands. And above it, in messy, oversized letters, my family forever. My chest caved in. I sat on the edge of the bed and laughed softly through tears. You used to say thank you back then, I whispered to the empty room. I could still hear his tiny voice. Thanks, Mommy. Back when hugs were tight. Back when love wasn't a transaction. Back when I was just mom. Not funding. Not debt. Not a liability. Just home. I pressed the drawing flat and tucked it into the nightstand. Not to remember what I lost, but to remember that once, before the ambition, before the hunger, before the world hardened him, my son loved me the only way a child knows how. Purely. And maybe that was enough. I turned off the light. Lay down. I slept without counting what I owed. And for the first time in years, the debt between us was finally paid. Thank you for listening until the end. Please join the Biohazard Zone. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let's grow this channel together.